Well, let's get this show rolling. Should. All right, we good? Okay. Good evening. I would like to call to order the March meeting of the Mount Hood Community College Board of Education. I declare tonight's regular session with the following directors present: Diane Noriega, Shatoya Bentley. Here. Will Miller. Here. Larry Morgan. Larry's absent, but will be joined online. And Mohammed Aljuri.
Here.
Timur Ender.
Here.
And Andrew Spear. I'm here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next, we'll move to item 2.0, public input. For persons wishing to provide public comments who are attending in person, please sign up by completing the sign-in sheet with your name, the name of the organization or group represented, if any, and a statement noting the agenda item or topic to be addressed to the board. The sign-in sheets are located on the table at the entrance to the meeting. For persons wishing to provide public comments via Zoom, we ask that you sign up by using the raise hand feature in Zoom. It's available at the bottom of your screen. When you are called to provide comments, please clearly state your full name, name of the organization or group represented, if any, and the agenda item or topic you'd like to address the board for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes per person. As a reminder, the board will hear comments or objective criticism of college operations and programs, but comments about individual college personnel should be directed to the board chair or president outside of this meeting. We will now hear public comment at this time. Roxanne, are there any sign-in sheets or hands raised?
Yeah, we have Jack Green and Cheryl Johnson.
Yes, and then hit the center button. You 2 fingers. There you go. You're on. It lights up here at the end. There you go. And go ahead and when you're ready.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Jack Green. I am a full-time faculty member in the Department of Mathematics. I've been here for 23 years. Thank you for your time today. I attended your recent Zoom meeting where you were presented with several administrative updates. The overall message seemed to be that things are functioning well and that the current systems are working as intended. The gist of the message that I heard was everything is fine, don't get too involved, don't look behind the curtain. But when you are responsible for overseeing a large public institution such as this one, and your managers tell you not to look behind the curtain, you should look behind the curtain. Let me give you an example. You heard a presentation about tenure, about how important the tenure is to this institution and how the administration simply wants to make a few adjustments to the process. What you did not hear is that during collective bargaining, your team's proposal was to remove much of the article on tenure from the contract, not revise it, not update it, remove it. When faculty asked what administration wants the tenure process to be, the response was essentially that they want the flexibility to do whatever they want, whenever they want. They do not want to be limited by a contract. This is not a small adjustment to tenure. That is removing the structure that makes the tenure process meaningful. Ironically, they presented that process to you just a few days ago. Here's another example. During the Zoom meeting, one of you asked how new board policies are made or created. The explanation you were given was that policies go through a process that includes review by a council system, where different campus groups review proposals and provide input before it comes back to you. That sounds like a healthy process, but what you were not told was that during bargaining, your team proposed eliminating FEOC. In other words, the system that was just described to you as an important part of how the college functions is at the same time being proposed for removal. There are 132 full-time members at Mount Hood, faculty members. We are the people who work with students every day, term after term, year after year. However, as you may know, administrators change over time. In fact, in the math department alone, I've had 11 deans in my 23 years. Can you imagine taking a class where the instructor changes every week with the new syllabus and new guidelines and new calendar? Deans, vice presidents, and even presidents move from college to college, refining their resumes at each step, and they never look back when they leave. There is nothing wrong with someone advancing their career. But when placing so much power in the hands of people with no personal stake in the college, it's dangerous. They do not have to live with the decisions that they make, and so have no real accountability. Consistency, accountability, and long-term commitment are necessary for the success of the college. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to look behind the curtain.
Cheryl, go ahead when you're ready.
So hello, I'm Cheryl Johnson, Chair of the Full-Time Faculty Bargaining Committee, here to give you an update. First of all, I want to say thank you for hearing our concerns from last meeting about losing our tenure process. Given Dr. Red's presentation to the board on March 4th, we now hope that we will be able to save that process. However, shared governance still remains a key concern for faculty. The college team has simply struck whole sections of language relating to our shared governance processes without offering any new language to replace it. However, in your March 4th working session, Dr. Red expressed an interest in increasing the amount of college service that is required from full-time faculty. We want to point out that a desire for faculty to increase their service to the college is antithetical to the college team's current proposals to cut our shared governance processes. Additionally, on the faculty's priorities of protections around AI and unrestrained immigration enforcement actions, we are sorry to report that your college bargaining team has made no movement. They are now telling us that they don't want to bargain these issues because they affect the whole campus community and not just full-time faculty. That is utterly ridiculous. We bargain issues that affect a faculty member's safety, working conditions, and employment here at the college. There are several issues in our contract already that also affect other employee groups. The fact that an issue exists for multiple groups at the college does not remove the college's obligation to have good faith negotiations with us around these issues. Finally, we did get the college's financial proposal last week. They offered a 1% COLA each year for 3 years, which is clearly significantly below the standard COLA for our area this year. We suspect it will also be below COLA levels in future years. In the past, we have used window language, which ties our COLA number to the actual inflation number, and it also has both a floor and a ceiling for the COLA increase. We believe that this protects both full-time faculty and the college, as it means that our COLA accurately reflects the economic conditions of the area while still allowing the college to budget reliably. We don't understand why the bargaining team has suggested getting rid of this long-running practice. While there are several issues still outstanding, we believe that with sustained focus and dedication from your bargaining team, we can settle this contract in the coming spring term. We urge this board and its bargaining team to remain focused and committed so that together we can achieve the fair contract that we have been working towards. Thank you all, and settle by spring.
Thank you. Public comment is now closed. Or, excuse me, Roxy, there's no raised hands. Okay, yeah, public comment is now closed. Thank you. We'll now move to item 3.0 reports. Lisa, do you have any correspondence to share? Well,
I do. I wanted to let the board know that on February 25th, we received a letter from the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities And this was a follow-up to our ad hoc visit earlier this year, actually in October. The letter says that this letter serves as formal notification and official record of action taken by the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities at its meeting on January 27th concerning the fall 2025 ad hoc report and visit of Mount Hood Community College. As you recall, we had 3 recommendations that came out of our full cycle or 7-year full assessment. Recommendation 1, they noted that the recommendation remains, and we continue to need improvement on that recommendation. And we will be submitting another report on that next year. Recommendation 2, which was around institutional effectiveness, they found this fulfilled. And recommendation number 3, also around institutional effectiveness, they found that fulfilled. So regarding recommendation 1, they want us to clearly identify program learning outcomes for all transfer degrees listed in the catalog. Our next visit will be next fall, which is our mid-cycle review. Well, they'll be looking at this again, and then we have our ad hoc report due in fall of 2027. So we were pleased with this outcome. To have 2 of the 3 removed is positive, and we feel confident that we can work on this last recommendation and have it fulfilled by next year.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we'll move to item 3.2 bond update, and I'd like to invite Jennifer DeMitt to come and share the update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just have a quick update tonight. We have just concluded our request for proposal process for architects and engineers to do the projects. We ended up having 16 firms apply. So really strong response, indicative of the economy, hopefully good for us on the price end, but we're not to that point of the negotiations yet. And 3 companies were selected after a full day of interviews with finalists. We selected based on expertise. So we kind of packaged the projects into some pots and then hired 3 different firms that have expertise in that area, in each of the areas. So we'll be bringing more detail to you. At this point, we're looking at putting together our design group. So like now is when all the heavy lifting is going to start, right? So we're going to have to assign leads to each group. So things like science labs, classrooms, the library, those projects. And then the architecture start digging in, trying to identify what the scope of it is going to be. And then they'll provide proposals for what their costs will be to do the architectural design for the project. And then we'll move on to the next step, which is to bring in a general contractor. We are working on card access and lockdown capabilities on campus. They're testing some equipment in the IT areas. We're still putting in pilings at the Aquatics Dome, but that's moving forward. Thank you so much for your emergency approval that let us keep going on that project and earlier this month. And we are in the planning process right now for our summer project. So it's March, it's beautiful today, right? So we're ready. We're looking at what projects we're going to finish some paving up and some additional roofing projects and continue the visual arts complex enclosures and roofing. So
I had a question.
Yeah.
So just to make sure I understood correctly, 16 firms applied and then you all chose 3 finalists, 1 for different sections.
we had actually 6 finalists came in and spent a whole day interviewing with our committee. And then out of that 6, they chose 3 different ones based on their expertise.
And who is they?
There was an RFP committee with people from across campus, a student member. I think there was 9 people on the RFP committee.
Great. Thank you. Congrats.
Any other questions?
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. And you're up for the next one too. Next we'll move to item 4.0 4.1 board policies first reading. And are you,
I'm sure she puts it up there. I didn't
Okay.
bring my glasses, but I can spin it.
okay.
You can make it bigger, right?
Track changes.
So this is first reading of our proposed annual board policy update. These are relatively minor adjustments. The first one is our equal employment opportunity policy, and there is a recommendation. I really should bring my glasses, grab my laptop. But okay, so there's the recommendation to strike the requirement to have an EEO plan. We aren't legally required to have an EEO plan, so it's just updating the language in the policy to reflect our reality. Dr. Scary did a full audit of these earlier, well, last year now, and was trying to tie out to make sure that everything that like said we were going to do this, that we actually had those things in place. And this was one that was identified, but when we researched it, we don't actually have to have an EEO plan in place. So it's just correcting the policy to match our legal requirements.
And that's the only edit to this policy?
Correct.
Are there any questions for Jennifer? All right.
There's more policies. You're amazing. Thank you. So this one is Education Records, Directory Information and Privacy. This is our normal FERPA policy, but our template has now been updated to include immigration records and how those are supposed to be handled. So, and then the legal references for both the immigrations were added. And then if you scroll down, Roxanne, to the very end of this policy, it just outlines what the Oregon law requirements or prohibitions really related to releasing student records for immigration purposes. We already had this in place in a separate policy because we put our immigration policies in place before the OCCA templates were updated. So this was just, there's some little shifting that went on to align ours with the templates on a go forward basis. But the language is the same as what was in our policy before.
Will?
Yeah, just to clarify, this last legislative session, House Bill 4079, passed the legislature. Curious it's in rulemaking or will be in rulemaking. So wanting to flag that we may need to revisit this as a result of that. I don't know if you've done that work at all, but
yes,
just flagging that.
We are in progress. I believe that this language was really aligned with the Oregon model rules and the Attorney General's recommended policies. So I think we're actually in really good shape from a policy and administrative regulation perspective. The one addition just in my review of that we have in place but not like formally documented, that we have just recently rolled out, is the notification process. So using a rave alert system to notify students and people on campus if we have public safety confirm that that ICE is on campus. But the other rules about like making sure that you have a designated spot for the contact, who's the point of contact if ICE shows up on campus, that's already in our administrative regulations and policies. So we're just, and to that point, we're exploring also our rave system currently is just in English. So we're kind of using this as a push to explore how we can leverage other languages in that system in a way that students or family members could opt in, or people visiting campus. I think there's some other colleges around the country that use the same system that let people like scan a QR code if they're going to be on campus for an event, like an event at the athletic facilities for the weekend, and then they would be able to opt into alerts for that weekend. So good for fire, safety, everything else, but also immigration.
Any other questions on this item?
This is, it's like, I hope you're not asking me to do this one. We're deleting it all.
This is a simple deletion because board policy 4220 is covered. It's duplicative of 4235, 4230, 4231. I don't have my glasses here. 42. Thank you. Thank you. And so we don't think that we need this list of things that are covered in other articles.
Any questions?
And then the last one is a deletion from discipline and dismissal. So this is another one that came up out of that audit that Dr. Scari did. So the first sentence in this says the president shall enact regulations for disciplinary proceedings applicable to employees of Mount Hood Community College. We do not have separate regulations for disciplinary proceedings. We intentionally did not include that language in our administrative regulations because it's covered in our collective bargaining agreements. So this is, again, just correcting it to align with our existing reality.
And just this one edit on this one.
Yes, this is the only edit.
Any questions?
Well, just for clarification, there are a couple other edits throughout where we removed gender language and moved it to non-gender specific language throughout all of these, but.
To clarify, do we still have one more AR to review around board vacancies?
We have one.
Okay, great.
So from a process. Reminder on a process side, board policy, board members have the final adoption on policy, but administrative regulations is given to president's cabinet. So for this one, we're actually flipping where you guys get to provide input on what the AR is that we'll take into account before we approve it. This one specifically, again, in the audit I did, discovered that our board policy says that the president will have an administrative regulation, and we didn't. We had a practice. And so this administrative regulation basically mirrors how we've operated, I think on 3 accounts when we've done appointments. And so there's no deviation in this language to what we've done. And for those of you that have been through the process this year, it's consistent, but did want to put this up for your review consideration. I also want to say we try to keep these a little loose just because of our AR and policy process requires sharing with both our councils and the campus community for comment. So you want to make it broad enough that we can follow, but that we don't have to keep going back when we're making it so specific that like if you said it has to be by the 3rd Wednesday and you decide, no, let's make it the 4th Tuesday. We don't want that level of detail if we can avoid it. So.
Do you just want any feedback from us on this if we?
Yeah, if there's, we can do one of 2 things. If folks had a chance or had questions, I'm happy to answer that. If you want to either provide feedback now or send it to Roxanne by email, and then we can incorporate that in what goes forward to PC for approval.
Is there any feedback? I mean, I'm curious about the newest board members that have been through this, if there's any direct feedback, but otherwise we can provide it offline.
Consistent with what I experienced, so I don't think there's anything I can add to that. But if I think of anything, I'll just email you or Roxanne.
Timur, anything, or Shatoya?
No comments on any of them.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Just quick
Yes.
clarification. It says qualified applications will be forwarded to the board. Qualified, I'm assuming that staff, Roxanne or Lisa would qualify them based on residency?
Yeah, the qualification is based on that they're in the proper zone.
That's all. Thank you.
Shatoya, did you have
Not that I've seen, but I will also feel free to email Roxanne when needed.
I just, with what Larry was asking, I just wonder if it's worthwhile just to say as some mention of within
Definitely
district,
qualified.
yeah,
Okay.
boundaries or we're defining qualified. Great. If there's no other questions, we'll move on. Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move to the action items. And first on the action items is the consent agenda, item 5.1. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is 5.2, faculty tenure recommendations. And I would like to welcome everyone joining us tonight to recognize our faculty members who are being recommended for tenure. Congratulations to each of you, and we're on reaching this significant milestone. And at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to our VP of Instruction, Dr. Tina Red, to proceed with the tenure recommendations. I mean, I think you could just turn it on and have it pointed at you.
I want to take a second here to welcome everyone and family, friends, supporters of our tenure candidates. This public moment is both an acknowledgement and a transition. It is an acknowledgement for our tenure candidates of the hard work that we have done. And hopefully the transition will also be a relief, because in many ways I know that government has felt above and beyond your primary assignment and your teaching duties. I also want to acknowledge that this is a transition into the ranks of tenured faculty, many of whom are standing or sitting behind you. This show of support is impressive and warranted. And I just personally want to extend my congratulations to the work that you've done. It was a pleasure to read your files and to learn more about the work that you're doing. I'm going to turn it over now to Dean Daniel Weiner, who will introduce two of the candidates.
What's the process? Do
I
You have to sit here?
Yeah.
And do you come with me?
Sure, yeah.
Right.
I'll make a scene.
Greetings. So Christine Sicione and Melly Hawk. And it's an honor to be recommending them for tenure. I'll tell a little bit about each of them and my experience working with them. And I'll start with Christine. She is a respiratory therapist, meaning she delivers critical care, life-saving care in high-stakes, fast-paced environments. And she takes students into those environments and shepherds them through that journey, which is both a technical journey and an emotional, cognitive, and spiritual journey. You're working in life-saving situations. You're witnessing things that are difficult to process. So there's a lot going on. And she is also a practicing respiratory therapist who was practicing during the largest respiratory pandemic in modern human history. Throughout all of COVID, she was in the hospitals working as a respiratory therapist. And there's no amount of formal education or ordinary professional experience that would be equivalent to practicing as a respiratory therapist throughout the entirety of COVID, also with students present. Beyond that experience, she brings a very unusual set of credentials to this institution and to the respiratory care program. She holds a graduate degree in the humanities, in political theory, economic theory, social theory, and gender studies. So she has a awareness of healthcare, not just as a technical application of skills, but as a cultural system. And I remember something she told me one day, and you will remember this too. She said, "Do you know who the hardest patients are?" It's like, no, I do not know who the hardest patients are. Non-compliant white men. Because their masculinity in their 40s. Thank you. because their masculinity and their racial identity prevents them from being vulnerable and accepting care. She has that awareness that it isn't just knowing what care needs to be given, but who are you giving care to? And what barriers do they have, or what receptivities do they have to that care? It's an interpersonal act. And she brings that awareness to the classroom and teaches that to students. You're going to have all these things I teach you about how to intubate somebody, but who is that entity that you're intubating? And who is that person you're caring for? And what are their boundaries that they've been taught? She also goes on to teach students in that same vein about the context in which this is happening. What are the policies that guide the system to which you are that you're working in? What is the legislation? What is the law? You're part of a scheme here. And this is career technical education at its absolute finest. Not just what are the skills you need at the bedside to perform the basic responsibilities, but what is the system you're a part of? And that's the awareness that leads to true mobility, because you not only have the economic security of your job, you can see what's around you, you can process it, you can see the opportunities, and you can move within a system you can name. And that's a really rare set of skills that she brings to the respiratory care program, and that I think is going to be a guiding set of principles as we design the bond-funded healthcare center, a center that is human-centered, technologically advanced, and socially aware. She also brought lots of technological innovations. She was part of the AI in healthcare team and really changed the way in which we were doing respiratory education in the program. It used to be we maintained 5 to 8 ventilators, and each of these things about $20,000 to $40,000 a pop. And we don't actually use them because we don't have patients, but we need the interface and the knobs, the buttons, the displays, so that students can see how it works. But that's it. And then we would pretend something was happening and then teach them how that instrument works. Christine brought on a simulation system where we pass out iPads to every student. We can call up the interface of any ventilation system, and we can call up the synthetic data sets simulating a particular scenario. So we can say to students, here it goes. The biometrics are happening right in front of you. What are you going to do? And now students have to begin responding. The ratio then went from 1 machine to 28 students to 1 machine to 1 student, and our ability to replicate any number of machines at no cost. So she's thinking at the leading edge of how technology is changing education and changing healthcare. And if all of that were not enough, I'll tell you something about her childhood. She is here because her own mother escaped poverty for their entire family through healthcare education herself at no other place than Mount Hood Community College. So she is a story of intergenerational success. And I remember one day in the hall when she told me this story, and she said, I know why we're here. It's how I got here. I saw it happen before my eyes as a child. So an absolutely phenomenal instructor. It's been an honor working with and growing alongside Christine, and I'm really excited for her tenure with us. Melly's a physical therapist, teaching physical therapy assistants. And so she's really working with motion, with movement. And in her case, it's as people have lost movement, how can they regain it? And specifically, not the young athlete who has injured their knee and needs to recover, but the person whose knees hurt because they're getting old and there may not be a recovery. This sort of end of life management of the loss of mobility. And with that focus comes a real sensibility about the life journey and where it eventuates and how we should treat each other along the way. I know that as a manager, I tend to really think in terms of productivity. My family was all about like, you need to be productive. You need to be productive in a knowledge economy. This is the path to survival. It's global currency. And something that's interesting about working with Melly, she told me, when people are getting ready to transition, I've never heard somebody say, I wish I'd worked more Saturdays. I wish I'd just done 3 more things on the job. What they say is, I wish I'd spent more time in community. I wish I'd spent more time connecting with the people around me. And something she brings to our entire department and has brought into my life is that awareness of, and brings into our students' lives, of the importance of the workplace and the learning space as a shared communal space and a place where we come and we are replenished through the meaning that we give to each other every single day. And you see it in the classrooms and in the communities that she builds, and you see it in her interactions with her colleagues. And it's been a really marvelous experience for me to witness. She's also an exceptional systems thinker. She sees where structure produces outcomes. When we were looking at the demographics of the physical therapy assistant program, we noticed it was about 88% homogeneous. When we looked at the data, we could see that the applicant pool was in fact more diverse than the cohort pool. Something was happening through the admissions process. Melly was one of the architects that made the decision to move from an admissions process that included a number of steps to a lottery system. Because if you've met the eligibility requirements for the program, we're not asking any more questions. You're all equally eligible for admission, and we're going to do a lottery. That met with quite a bit of resistance because people said, what about the student who worked so hard to get a 4.0 GPA? All that hard work is being ignored by the lottery. To which the answer was, maybe those grades are more a function of who has had the opportunity to devote all of their time to their studies versus the person who has had to make those difficult choices. Do I care for my child or my elder, or do I study for my midterm exam, or do I go to work and earn some money to pay the bills? So if you've met the eligibility requirements, you're all on equal footing for entry to our program. This year, the demographic composition is about 56% homogeneous. That's a 30% change in who has access to higher education and career pathways in healthcare in 12 months through a single structural change. People will say institutional change takes 35 years. Maybe, or maybe it takes tremendous insight and courage. We also had a situation in healthcare with accreditation. We would go through accreditation, we wouldn't do so well. We would have a bunch of findings. We would spend 3 to 4 years trying to address those findings. We would spend another 3 to 4 years recuperating from the trauma, and then the process would start over again. And we decided in physical therapy assistant that we were going to try something a little different. And Dr. Red afforded us the opportunity and the resources to bring together a team in Kristen Jensrud, the program director, and Melly Hawk, as the project manager. This was so great because by making her the project manager, I just got to do tasks, which she assigned. She assigned all of the tasks. And so I didn't have to manage the project anymore. She put the whole thing into Microsoft Planner. Every standard, the template that needed to be completed for every standard, and the progress badges that we would attach as we went through, and the assignments. So I could come into work and I would see exactly what my assignments were. We met every week for an entire year, 3-hour sprints, and then completed our assignments asynchronously between those sprints. We produced a 264-page report with Melly as our project manager. Last week, we were awarded accreditation, no action required, for an entire decade. So you've got 10 years. And she just managed the entire team. built the consensus, corralled us, and kept it meaningful as we went. Ground us in why we're doing this and why it matters. When you can get an accreditation for 10 years, no action required, you can focus on what you really should be focusing on, and that's your students. For a generation now, we have nothing else we need to do but focus on students. And that is an amazing gift from a powerful systems thinker. Dr. Red is telling me to wrap it up. No way. Buckle up. I've got another few things to say. I told you about Christine's childhood. I'll tell you one thing about Melly's. So Melly's father, I do know this, who's with us tonight, has a duality in his existence, which is a career of service to his nation through the United States military. And upon retirement, he became a sunflower farmer. And I would say that those two things are also echoed in Melly's spirit. It would be service and sunflowers.
Nobody told me I was gonna have to follow Wenger. No, but I'm excited to do so. I have the good fortune of being able to present Dr. Dustin Bassett for tenure today. Dustin teaches in our cybersecurity and computer information systems programs, and I will just say that it is an honor to talk over children. So I am super stoked. Go for it. It warms my heart to have littles in the room. So please don't worry about it. And yeah, if you so we're excited to be working. I became Dustin's supervisor last year at the beginning of the year. So I'm his adopted dean. So I think I have maybe a slightly less robust series of experiences together, but we've come through a lot. It's been a big year, 18 months or so. And in those months that we've worked closely together, I've come to know Dr. Bassett to be just a really energetic instructor. In the classroom, students talk about his classes are fun and engaging, and he brings a lot of energy. I've also found Dustin to be someone who's very, very willing to take on new work, new challenges, new projects. And that's been really key at this point in the cybersecurity program's history, as we're, flying the plane while we're building it a little bit in terms of this bachelor's degree program, where, this is the first, we're 12, 13 weeks away from having our first graduates walk across the stage with a bachelor's degree from Mount Hood Community College. And Dustin and the team are hugely responsible for that, and it's a really, really great thing. So he's taken on all kinds of work to help build curriculum for that program, to problem solve for that curriculum when we've had challenges with staffing and technology and just all the things that come with starting a new degree program. He's took over and is serving as the principal investigator of our National Science Foundation grant, which is no small thing to do in the middle of tenure, and a really impressive effort on his part. He's been contributing to our outreach efforts. He's been part of our Cyber Day event, and hosted and participated in several of our cyber competitions that we've had. Come on up. Come sit with Dad. He's awesome. He's an awesome dad. He's got an adorable kid. This is making it way easier, though. Thank you, by the way. And yeah, Mom is over there. I'm almost certainly forgetting things, right? But it's safe to say that Dustin has just consistently been willing to step up and help out in a variety of ways. And I'm super grateful for that as a person new to the division, trying to figure my way through it. I've also known that he's just kind and curious, and he's a really great colleague to the rest of the faculty on the team, and been a pleasure to work with. We've had a few conversations a little bit about this being kind of like the end of one thing and the beginning of another. I think my personal belief is, receiving tenure is the start of a journey, and your fulfilling career comes from continually working on your craft, your teaching practice. I'm excited to watch and support you through that journey. I know you're going to do a great job. You'll have a little more oxygen maybe to take on things now that you're not sitting through those tenure meetings every so often. But you've done a really, really great work. It's been a pleasure to work with you. It's my great privilege to present you to Dr. Scari and the Board of Education as a tenure candidate. So congratulations, Dustin Fasek.
Thank you, Daniel. What a pleasure to have to rein a team in with so enthusiastic about the work that the faculty are doing. I wanted again extend my congratulations to the candidates as you're just on the precipice of joining the tenured faculty behind you. I look forward to supporting your work, and I am excited about the Realize energy.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you to Daniel and Pete for presenting the candidates to us. And congratulations to you all coming before us tonight as faculty for your tenure. It's a professional milestone that's worth noting, so we're excited to be here tonight with you. The granting of tenure is important to the board as the actions we take this evening contributes to meaningfully to the future of our college. We are proud to all of you for your accomplishments and look forward to the continued impact of service to our students, the institution, and your professional fields. May I have a motion to approve the faculty tenure recommendations?
May I comment real quick?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just want to say thank you. The backgrounds were all super impressive and really enjoyed hearing about how equity was put into practice. I just noted that you all saw opportunities to incorporate equity into systems and you had the expertise to move those changes forward. And then you had the dedication to stay with it to overcome obstacles in your personal and professional lives. And that is really difficult work. So thank you for your service to this institution and to the students of Mount Hood. It is a privilege to support these individuals in this agenda item.
May I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Second, moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I would just like to echo Timur's comments. I think when I observe the work of this institution and then the work of our board on down through our president and the administration, I think one thing that's been clear since my 6 years on the board is thinking about students and student outcomes, first and foremost, as we think about policies for the college, and then as we think about the impacts to our students. So I want to thank you for your work as instructors here and prioritizing that as outcomes for our students and encourage faculty to continue to prioritize that as we look forward to other tenure classes. So thank you.
I'll add too. I would like to thank the fact that you guys have prioritized cultural competence in your work and in preparing the next generation of workforce in that cultural competence, and continue doing that. It's okay. I have a 4-year-old. He does the same thing. So, but yes, that cultural competence in today's workforce it will help the next generation as they prioritize where they would like to go. So keep up the good work.
All right. With that, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations. All right. Next we'll move to item 5.3, faculty sabbatical request for 26-27. And I'd like to invite Don Forrester to please present the faculty sabbatical requests for this period. And Don, go ahead whenever you are ready. Try two fingers there you go. You're on.
Okay, good. Hello, and thank you all for having me here. It's once again an honor to be here to present to you all kind of the next stage, right? So we've got people attaining tenure tonight, and in a few years, I might be bringing them here, not bringing them, but bringing their goals and their exciting new endeavors here to talk about their sabbaticals. So I'm here to talk about the sabbaticals from this year. As you know, my name is Dawn. What you might not know is that I'm one of the faculty counselors, or some of you know, because you hear me say this over and over, but I'm one of the faculty counselors here. And I'm also the chair of the Faculty Resource Development Board, which we just call the FRDB Committee. And the FRDB Committee sponsors and not sponsors, but we really support and fund full-time faculty's endeavors for professional development. So, and part of that is not only just ongoing professional development that many of us need to, carry on our license and all of that other good stuff, but also bigger projects that require longer time, such as a sabbatical. And I'm curious, are y'all interested in a little tiny snippet of the sabbatical application process, or do you want me to move on from there?
I'm happy either way. I think I've heard it, but
You have.
but would anyone like to go into the?
I wouldn't mind just a overview.
Yeah, I've got a real quick one. And so, William, I stick to a script so I don't stray. So just a little bit of information about the actual sabbatical process is that every fall term, full-time faculty have the opportunity to apply for a sabbatical leave to work on kind of bigger projects for the following academic year. The applications are reviewed by the FRDB committee, and they're approved based on the value of their activities, the proposed activities, and also by the date of their last sabbatical or their time of service at the college. Kind of as simple as that. And then they submit their applications, and then the committee reviews those applications. And then I bring them here to the board. So with that, this year we had 7 applicants. One person had to withdraw their application, leaving 6, and we were able to fund all 6 this year, which I always love. It saves me an email that always kind of breaks my heart to say, we can't fund you. So we're able to fund everybody. And in your packet, in your board packet, you have a list of the faculty members and their sabbatical goals. So without repeating all of that information, I just wanted to highlight some common themes that I've seen for this year. And it's kind of interesting how these themes change. So 3 basic themes. One is curriculum innovation and like teaching effectiveness. Another is exploring emerging technologies. And the third one is student success and support. So the first one with curriculum innovation, we've got Seth in our math department who's learning a new statewide curriculum for a class that's going to be offered statewide, Math 108. We have Salome in the English department who will be updating curriculum, kind of making curriculum a little more relevant, more current, and also thinking about, or she's also going to be working on flipping her classroom, makes it a little more interesting for students. And then we have Julie Hutchins, who's going to be kind of determining best practices for ABE, GED, which is Adult Basic Ed, and GED.
General education.
GED. we'll leave it at that, by researching various programs around the country. So those are really interesting. And then we've got our tech folks who are going to be exploring emerging technologies, such as Todd and Mechatronics, who I think he's got to learn. Okay, I don't understand the words on his application, but what I can gather is that he's learning the technology that is going to be the new technology that's being used in that new mechatronics lab. And I walk by it every single day, and it's fun to see every day there's more and more equipment. And so I'm sure he's excited to be getting ready for that. And then Wayne Machuca in our computer science department is going to be looking at the effects of AI and cybersecurity and trying to determine whether they need to upgrade curriculum to include it or, not or whatever. And then in my department, student success and support. So while all of these folks are going to be working towards supporting students and their success and all of that, my colleague Rachel will be learning new evidence-based theories that focus on a kind of a preventative approach to distress. So again, counseling. So to preventative approach to personal and interpersonal distress. And we'll be expanding our counseling services by creating group counseling opportunities to better support and improve our student well-being. Right? So as always, we have this really outstanding pool of innovative and thoughtful proposals. And with that, do any of you have any questions that I may or probably not be able to answer? I might be able to answer them.
Any questions for Don? All right.
All right. So then with that, I'd like to formally request the board's approval as the final step in this process.
Great. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the faculty sabbatical request for 26-27?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
The next item, we don't plan to take action, but we wanted to hold it on the agenda to be able to allow Jennifer space to present some follow-up to the questions that were asked at our last meeting, our work session. So Jennifer, I will turn over to you for discussion or presentation on consideration for tuition and fees.
Okay, give me 2 seconds here. Okay, so I noted the questions that the board had when I presented on March 4th at the work session related to tuition and fees. And I really just kind of framed each slide around your questions, just really directly answer them. So I'm just going to go through, remind you of the question and then kind of how I'm framing it. So this slide is from before, but what I added to the slide is the answer to the question about how much does $1 in tuition generate? So that's $186,000. So that was a question that came before. The rest of the slide is still here about the difference impact in budget between a $4.75 per credit increase and a $3 per credit increase. So feel free to, I can go through them all or jump in if you have questions. The next question was how much tuition increase would be needed for there to be no staff cuts? So we had a $4.9 million deficit. If we were to close the entire deficit with tuition revenue, new tuition revenue only, it would equal a $32.50 per credit hour tuition increase. I see you looking at me, Diane. And now, like $1,462 per year for full time, but like realistically, if we increased our tuition by $32 per credit hour, we would have our enrollment tank probably and wouldn't actually generate 4.9 million. But it as an activity of like comparing $4.75 per credit hour. That equals $214 per year for a full-time student, versus what it would actually take if we were to fill our entire deficit on through tuition. That's a mechanism. So the next question was, what do we need to put in place to safeguard things that we're going to need in the future? So this is something that we really tried to center as we went through our review process, and looking at like everything that we do is related one way or another to our mission, right? We wouldn't do it if it wasn't, but some things are more mission critical and other things are more mission supporting. So we really tried to designate the difference between that, and where those core capacities that our mission keeps us. So things like things that directly impact student learning, program delivery, or academic progress, or in alignment with our public mission, right? So under that student learning tab, student success, so things like enrollment management, onboarding of students, advising, retention, completion, those being the second pillar, providing, financial sustainability. I was just going to skip right over that one. And so financial sustainability, right? Like how do we protect our revenue streams, or protect the ability to generate revenue? And then finally, what is our essential operating capacity? So like what is our IT infrastructure, compliance, safety things that we need to actually keep all of the other things moving? One of the questions was, what are students getting for the increased tuition that we're asking them to pay? So framing this as continued access to needed classes. We have fewer course cancellations, better availability of courses, if we're not making additional reductions, maintain student support services. So looking at advising, financial aid processing, student success things, those things are still kept whole within our budget, that the students are depending on. Protection for students with financial need, and I'll talk a little bit more about this grants and aid idea, but we also built into the budget an associated increase in our internal general fund grants and aid, at the same percentage increase with the tuition. So as to not water down those institutional waivers. As tuition goes up, the amount of the waivers go up. And then also, and I've said this before, providing a smaller, more predictable increase. So knowing that like an increase now is smaller, students can predict it on an annual basis. In the past, when we have tried to like hold tuition increases, eventually it gets to this bubbling point and you end up with a much larger increase, which is much more impactful for the students that are here at that time. So we had lots of questions about affordability, and this came from our state dashboard. And I tried to put this kind of in the same format as I've done with the per credit tuition. This is the percent of students unable to afford college after financial aid and estimated family or individual contributions. It's 2022-23 data, so that's the most recent data that the HEC had on their website. But you can see the yellow is our statewide average, 25%. Mount Hood is at 24%, so just below the statewide average. The actual rest of the question was, can you overlay Oregon's socioeconomic trends with tuition rates? Which I tried to do on the next slide, and I apologize, it's very small and we can send these out. So I broke it into quadrants. The line that goes horizontally is the affordability, and it's the average statewide affordability, which is 25%. And then the vertical line is the average statewide tuition, which is $6,995. So that yellow dot's like right in the middle, right? So the first quartile on the top are the schools that have below statewide average tuition, but above statewide average affordability. So we'll just pick on Klamath is the top one on that quartile. They've kept their tuition pretty low, but they're at like 37% of their students can't afford to go to college. Mount Hood is the red dot, right down kind of here. So we are in that first lower quartile, which means we have below statewide average tuition and below statewide average affordability challenge. So a good place to be. And then you can see the quartiles to the right there are those that are above statewide average for tuition and affordability. And Lane and Lynbet, and then on the bottom quartile, less of an affordability challenge, but the highest tuition. I think Lane is there. And these tuition numbers are current year tuition numbers. The affordability numbers are a few years old. I suspect that gap may increase for some of these schools that have been going through some significant financial challenges. But Lynn, Benton, and Lane, for example, they have been doing significant reductions balanced with tuition increases, and you can see, you know, where that impact may be on students. And then one of the other questions was, what percentage of our students rely on aid? So I'm calling it aid and not just financial aid, because there's a lot of resources. And I think when people hear financial aid, they think Pell Grants or Oregon Opportunity Grants. So I wanted to dig into a little more about, so 73% of our students do get financial aid. And who pays that? Like, where does that money come from? So this, we dug this out of our audit. So it's June of 2025 data. And of our tuition revenue, this is where it came from. So 51% came from federal and state financial aid. So your traditional Pell Grants, Oregon Opportunity Grants, Oregon Promise. Does not include loans, because loans are not considered a pay, like it doesn't reduce the cost of attendance for students, it just delays the cost of attendance for students. Then following that clockwise around, the orange section is foundation private scholarships. That's 6% of our tuition is paid for with that. 3% is paid with general fund tuition support. So that's the tuition grants and aid that is in our general fund budget that we approve every year. Other grants is 1%, and this ties in to the next slide about revenue generation opportunities. But these are grants that the college has applied for that specifically we've built into the grant budget tuition support for students in those programs. So there's some semiconductor funding, some like TRIO grants, so like different grants where we've built tuition support into it, and that's probably an opportunity for growth in the future. Third party, so that means someone's paying tuition on behalf of students. Often those are employers. Sometimes third party can be like state benefit offices if there's like retraining involved. And then finally, students and families pay about 34% of the tuition, which kind of aligns with that 73%, right? So in 2025, we billed out $22.4 million in tuition and fees. But more than half of that, or 11.5 million, was actually covered by scholarships and other aid. And then the final question was, are there other revenue generation options that might minimize the impact of tuition? And so this pie chart is recycled from before, but 3% of our projected revenue for next year is coming from that other income category. It's doesn't make up, even if we were to be able to double that income, it still wouldn't even come close to covering our gap right now. However, we do have some initiatives underway. One is under community ed. So we have built in a plan to increase the revenue there by $60,000, which does not sound like a lot, but is actually a 41% increase in their revenue. And not by doing it by just increasing fees, right? Because that's not the solution. The solution is like, what are the most popular courses? How do we add more of them? Do we run more stuff during the summer? And then the other part, the other focus we're looking at is customized workforce training. This is something that's kind of slowed down a little bit in the last few years, but looking at increasing revenue there by $65,000, which is actually more than doubling our existing revenue in that program. So some very ambitious goals for that other revenue, but not generating a huge contribution towards a $5 million deficit. So we are trying to look at balancing other areas of revenue. Those are the questions from last work session. The answers, I'm happy if you have any questions or clarifying. I also have the slides from before if you want to revisit any of them.
Any questions for Jennifer?
Yeah, Andrew. Jennifer, two quick questions, or actually two, more than two, but at least two to start. The tuition increase represents what exact percentage of an increase?
3.71%.
And then the the thought is to add a 3.71% increase in aid as an offset.
Yes, yeah, to the aid that is in our general fund. So we have grants and aid built into our general fund that covers our employee waivers, athletic waivers, co-curricular waivers, legally required tuition waivers. So there's ones like senior citizen discounts, foster kids, veterans. So we increase the budget for all of those waivers by the same percentage so that that we don't dilute the number of waivers that we're able to give.
Okay, so we're going to increase the same percentage, but perhaps for a student that may be looking at directly like institutional aid, they may not be people that are on a talent waiver or other things.
On a talent, yes, it's not a huge percentage of our students that are getting money specifically from that. There are other forms of aid. There was not an increase to Pell Grants for the current year, much aligned with the federal administration. So there isn't necessary. I can't say that there's an increase in the overall student aid at the same percentage.
You cannot.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question I have is when we've historically increased tuition, do we know data wise if there's a drop off in certain populations that come to campus or don't due to not being able to afford it, or if marginalized communities as a whole are disproportionately affected by the increases or otherwise, or do we track that to know?
We have tried in the past to identify a correlation between the cost of attendance and enrollment, and have not been able to isolate any trends that have a like correlation or causation. I'm going to use like statistics.
Correlation.
Well, right, so we like unemployment is one thing. So as unemployment, we can actually connect when unemployment goes up, enrollment goes up. But we haven't been able to connect when tuition increases, enrollment in general declines or enrollment of specific populations declines. I don't think we haven't been able to prove that it's a driver in any significant fashion. And we have looked at it several times, at least over the last decade for sure. And I think Sergey's done that work. I don't have it in front of me, but we could ask him to dig that up, what we did before.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great slides.
Any other questions for Jennifer?
No, I don't have a question per se. I just I think for me it gives me heartburn thinking about a 475 increase when, like I said last time, last meeting, that this and thank you for your work, first of all, and your team's work. But it's not lost on me that this could mean a prescription for a student or a meal. And I really want to be thoughtful before the board takes a vote in our ability to exhaust any other option. It's difficult for me to support a 475 increase currently, but I'm excited to continue having conversation.
I have a question around enrollment, potentially, Lisa. This is a question for you. I'm wondering, have we anticipated enrollment to increase or decrease?
So we are putting in an assumption of 1%. And that's, Sergey does a really good job of looking at both what's happening in our local district with kind of the traditional age, but also what the trends are. So that's following with that. There's always this gamble of you want to try to get your enrollment projections right, because you're assuming revenue. And then you're building a budget for expenses based on that revenue. And so you never want to overinflate what you think you're going to get, because you're going to have expenditures and then you're going to end up doing cuts. And at the same point then, right, you also don't want to be so conservative that you have significantly more enrollment and then, right, because you haven't budgeted for that revenue, you can't spend it until the next year. And so it is, we rely on Survey heavily to kind of look at that, and he's done everything with looking at unemployment trends, right, to see what the correlation is and how that different matches. And so this has been his best assumption for next year. Now, I will say that's built on who we are today. Part of, I think, Will's conversation around opportunities of revenue generation. If we can identify new things, right, that can increase revenue and also be mindful of not a cost that's going to kind of negate that. But that's that sweet spot we're looking at, is new opportunities, new markets, new offerings that then can generate new revenue that we can continue on and have be right. Because you don't want to do something once and that doesn't help your long-term plan. So that's one of those things, yes, in process. And
yeah, I'm curious too, are we foreseeing like at least a stabilizing the 4.5% enrollment that we currently have right now, or is that gonna lower?
The 4.75 plan for this year. We're right. And I've got a few comments in my final comments. We've been where we thought, but it's flattened out. And it's not just us. That's the other thing, is we're seeing this across the state, where enrollments, which we're all building with a few exceptions, are now kind of hovering stable. So again, trying to figure out, and even though not all high school students come to us, or there's a proportion, the fascinating things is our enrollment trends follow what's happening with high school graduates. So as the high schools are losing and having fewer students graduating, we kind of see an offset. So that's where it's on us to figure out programs that are new and different and appeal to older individuals who are not part of that tradition.
Okay, thank you. Because the increase, or like the 475, I still have heartburn about the 475. When we voted last year on the 4, I wasn't anticipating on us putting that 0.75 in there or it increasing. I was more so like, if we stay at the 4 or 350 or 375, like I'm understanding in that manner. But it's given a precedent that will keep increasing if we go in that route. And so I do remember as well, you mentioning how you asked every area to look at their budgets, and I'm wondering, has there been any decisions made around any like material cuts or in that realm, or any spots?
That's in process, and that'll be the April 1st budget committee presentation.
Okay.
So we'll be sharing that with you as far as what the details are on. And that's also why we talked and decided that we were going to present the tuition information tonight. But we felt it was important for you to have the full picture before you had to make a tuition decision.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a comment. I went through these line by line, the fees, and I thought they were well thought out, rational, and intentional. And back to Director Miller's point from last time, it seemed like solid options for non-tuition revenue generation, particularly related to facility uses for outside groups. So I really appreciated that. And I'm just generally where I'm coming from, just so the rest of the board is aware. Tuition increases are always hard, but the modest increase to prevent significant cuts later is appealing to me. And then doing everything we can to minimize layoffs for the people who put their life force into this institution. And one thing you mentioned previously, but did not mention today, was what are we getting? And one of those things is significant bond-funded campus infrastructure upgrades for students. So just sharing with the board about where I'm coming from to this conversation, but obviously value all the feedback and discussion from other board members as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jennifer? Or any other information requests that we could follow up with at the work session?
Andrew, just two things I have. I'd be interested to see what we could do to provide more direct aid in light of, I think, federal cuts that are coming around Pell. I think that's a big consideration. I think it'd be helpful to also understand, I think, the comments that were just made about, a modest increase for, hopefully staving off, future cuts. I'm also deeply concerned that this may be the first round of increases. I think we may see with the state's challenges and the federal challenges in the future, we may see historic increases in the next go around. So I want to be mindful of that to set the expectation that we want to keep this college as affordable and as accessible as possible.
So Larry, one thing I did on your direct aid comment, I know that the foundation, which is our kind of affiliate largest contributor of scholarship money, last year they awarded over $1 million. And I know this year they've got a lofty plan going into the 60th to try to raise, I think, an additional 300,000. So being mindful of, trying to make it as affordable for our students, the foundation is really trying to step up and help fill that gap for us.
No, I appreciate that. I just know that we can control this side of the house, not that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Larry. Jennifer, I believe I know the answer to this question, but the practical options, if we approve, if we approve at $3 level, for example, and not the $4.75, I believe our options are further budget cuts or withdrawing from the reserve fund. And if we were to approve at the $3 and then withdraw from the reserve fund, what would be that amount of withdraw from the reserve fund? And would that put us below the board's threshold of policy for reserve amount?
So the difference between $4.75 and $3 is $260,000.
Okay.
So the option would be to do additional cuts at $260,000 or to let the reserves fall below 10%. It wouldn't be a significant amount below 10%, and it would certainly be above the 5% policy absolute minimum. Excuse me. But I also want to say that the budget that we're putting together, and we'll talk more on the first, is still deficit spending by $2 million. So we have made reductions to get to where we can still maintain 10% reserves. There is still more work to do.
Assuming the 475 budget.
Yes.
Revenue.
Right. So there's still $2 million in deficit spending. If we went with $3, that would add 260,000 to that, plus any cost increases that we have next year, or reductions from the state would have to be. So to Larry's point, this is step one already. Things could potentially, we know that there's going to be a phase 2 for the next budget year. There's significant PERS increases coming up, but we know we're still deficit spending. We made a good chunk with what we're going to bring forward with the proposed budget, but it's still not all the way there.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to share my perspective. I shared this at our study session earlier this month, but my fear and concern is what Larry was sharing at the end of his comments of, as we look into the next biennium and the state's budget approval, we know there's going to be cuts. We just don't know how deep they're going to be. And I've shared this with a few of you today. When we go into each session, we ask for just current service levels, which the governor's budget never meets. And then we kind of get close to current service levels, but current service levels don't account for any inflation increase. So we're already going into starting our next school year under the amount of inflation that we should have received. And so I am just concerned that if we don't approve at the highest level of tuition this year, that we will go, it'll be a 2x or a 3x type of scenario of needing to increase tuition in next school year or the year after. And so that's where I'm at, and wanting to make sure we're being mindful as a body of that financial reality. And we also need to be aware and thinking about our reserve fund and it's where it stands currently, which is kind of near what our policy is anyways, at the 5% level, which doesn't get us very many operating months if all funding was cut today. So anyhow, I just want folks to know that and think about that as we go forward into next month. Any other questions?
We do need a board vote to approve going below the reserve percentage.
So we will bring the board the board budget committee. We're a little unique because we have such a large district. The tax supervising commission acts as our budget committee, and with the board, instead of having members of the public be on a budget committee like you would see at the city of Portland. So just a distinction. The board is the budget committee. The board will receive the proposed the budget committee will receive the proposed budget on April 1st. That we'll talk through how much, what's in there, what reserves are proposed in there. We are going to build that budget with with the assumption of a $4.75 tuition increase. And then on April 15th, we'll ask the budget committee to approve the budget, or make recommendations to change the budget. I mean, it's not something we've done, but I think when we're talking about having the board vote on tuition as well. So at that point, if the board does have to approve tuition for policy. So if the board approves a $3 tuition increase, then at that point, the direction should be from the board to either let the reserves drop below that 10%, or to direct the administration to come up with it.
But it's just a verbal directive versus an actual vote that we have to do to approve the changing of the policy, basically.
You're just getting at the reserve fund going below the 5% level. Do we have?
Yeah.
So 5% is it would require a plan to be submitted to the board in order to. We're not going below 5%. We're going below 10%, which is
going to be included in the proposal.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But the board does have to. The budget committee has to approve the budget and can make direction to change the budget so that you can approve it. And then in June, it'll come back to the board, not as the budget committee, also to adopt. So the board is approving a reserve that goes below that by adopting the budget. If that makes sense.
Any last questions? Comments? Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Next we'll move to board and committee liaison reports. And first up is reviewing the draft agenda for April's budget committee meeting, study session, and regular session.
It's an hour long.
Any questions or comments on the agenda for the budget session? Want to go on to the next one, Roxanne? Oh. Got it. Yeah, so the dividing line, budget session ends after 4.0, and then on 5.0, we start our study session items. And this is the 15th, Roxanne, right? Sure. So the regular session starting on item 6, right? And then going down. Okay. Any comments on the 15th meeting for the regular session? Okay. All right, I think any last call? I think we're good, Roxanne. Next, we'll move on to board member reports. So we made a little bit of a process update to our meeting agenda. Normally, we had individual board member reports to report out on any committee or liaison work. And then just in order to streamline our meetings and cut on a little time, we wanted to just offer an opportunity for board members to give up committee updates if they have them. And I just want to list our committees so we all know. We have the Budget and Finance Committee, Advocacy Committee, Audit Committee, Head Start Liaison, Foundation Liaison, Oregon Community College Association, OCCA Liaison, and the OSBA, Oregon School Board Association. Those are our list of committees and/or liaison roles. So with that, I just wanted to offer up space for people to raise their hand and give an update for their committee if there is one, or liaison role. And if there's not, we can save on a little time. So I'll open the floor.
I just had a question. Is there a time for board member updates unrelated to committees? Because I had some for that.
Yeah, I mean, this could be our space for that as well. If you have just a general comment or update you wanted to make.
Okay.
I did attend the foundation board meeting. And of course, the major topic, I mean, I reported on where we were, but the major topic, of course, is the gala. It's coming up very soon on April 11th. And so I encourage you all to get a table, invite all your friends, and tell them to bring lots of money.
Thank you, Diane. I will go quickly just for the OCCA side of things. I attended we held the OCCA board meeting since the last month, and there wasn't anything like, we passed some policy items, but we don't have anything large coming up in the OCCA front in terms of events or meetings. But I want to make sure that we did hand out the sign-up sheet for what folks are interested in for events for this next year. So please take a look at those OCCA events and the national events and just mark down what you're interested in attending. And Timur?
Yes, just some Zone 4 updates. I was able to attend the Midsummer Night's Dream performance at Mount Hood Community College and was just really impressed by the lighting and the acrobatics. That was a great performance. So shout out to everyone who was involved in that. Attended the David Douglas School District's Black History Celebration. This is the main school district in Zone 4, and so I just make an effort to attend those events. Also related to City of Portland, local government, because that's all within Zone 4. There's a proposal to take 25% of Portland Clean Energy Fund dollars and use that to hire 400 more police officers. My understanding of the process is that a judge approved that the signature gathering for that can continue to be placed on a November 2026 ballot. Andrew, you may know more about this than me, but just not something I'm supportive of, but just wanted to let people know that that's out there related to a local government matter. And of course, cuts to PSEF impact people of color and home energy upgrades, which is the intent of the program. Also invited every elected official that overlaps with Zone 4 to attend and sponsor the gala. This includes state reps from House District 46, 47, 48, and Senate Districts 23 and 24, and all Portland City Council members and County Commission members that touch Zone 4. So excited to join the gala. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other updates? Mohammed?
Quick ones. Thank you. Director Spear. Wanted to first say Happy International Women's History Month. It's March. I think a lot of us have important, amazing ladies, women in our lives that have achieved a lot, and so I want to recognize that. I had the pleasure of attending an event with one of those amazing women. Dr. Lisa Scari was a panel speaker at an event called Meet the President at PSU, where almost every college/university president was in attendance. It was an incredible venue to be a part of as a fly on the wall, basically, where they all shared their hopes and dreams and challenges, and to see Dr. Scari as a panelist with University of Portland and PSU's presidents was incredible. So thank you for sharing your thoughts in that forum. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Well,
I just have one thing. The announcement went out to the board, but just want to congratulate the incoming student body president and vice president on the election. Thank you, everyone involved. Excited to work with you all, and thank you, Jeffrey, personally for all that you've done and continue to do. I'll leave it there.
thanks, Will. Anyone else?
Sorry, one last thing. A lot of us attended the lunch with the board. I forgot what it's called. It's been a while.
This board and student event.
Yeah, the board and student engagement. I had an opportunity to talk to a student that is going through the cybersecurity, and they're finishing up their first year of it. And I got to hear about the interesting things that they were able to learn so far. So it sounds amazing of the things that they're learning already. And so I just wanted to highlight that. And then also a tax increment finance conversation. We're just now getting into the bylaws so it could start governing in alignment. So it's moving faster than a lot of us will like it to, because a lot of us want to be intentional with the tax dollars within that side of Portland. So, but there's a lot of us advocating for those dollars to go into meaningful work. So I just wanted to highlight that because it indirectly impacts the college.
Great. Thank you, Shatoya. All right. Anyone else? Okay. We'll move to closing reports. We'll now hear updates from our advisory representatives, and I'd like to remind our representatives to please keep your comments to policy and program matters only, and we look forward to hearing your updates. And first up is ASMHCC and Jeffrey.
Good evening, board members. ASMHCC is wrapped up for the term, but next term we plan on coming back on a strong path. On February 25th, we hosted our Lunch with the Board and President event. I would like to thank Will, Larry, Shatoya, Diane, and Timur for being there. Oh, also Dr. Scari, of course. We had about 100 people attend this event. Later that evening, we also had an I Love MHCC game for the last men's and women's basketball game. We gave out about 100 chicken sandwiches to students and the team members after their game. We hope to be more present at athletic events starting next term. On March 2nd, we had a bond informational event. Charles, George, and Jennifer Dement were super helpful in helping plan this event and making it come together. We had about 50 students come to the event, but it was really nice to be able to give out information to the students about the bond and how they can get involved. Let's see. And on March 5th, we had our International Women's Day event. We collaborated with Transiciones for this event. We really wanted to honor women as culture keepers and women in STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, and arts and mathematics. We were able to award 6 awards to members of our extended MHCC community. Approximately 175 students came to that event. On March 11th, we had our prep week event. We had about 313 students attend that event. So you got some waffles, bacon, eggs, and they got to hear an ensemble from the MHCC chamber ensembles. Finally, on the 13th, we concluded our student body president-elect and vice president elections. The president-elect is Leanna Navarro, and our vice president-elect is Aubrey Cannell. They will both be starting their positions in July. Looking ahead, we will be working to fill the rest of the ASMHC team during the spring term. Plans for our annual Barney Bash are underway, and we hope that you guys can join us on Thursday, May 21st for that event. As always, thank you for you guys' continued support, and we look forward to working with you guys more next term.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Next, we'll move to our advisory representatives and Sarah Williams for the full-time faculty.
I always appreciate they leave the microphone on. So I don't have to play with that. So thank you for the time. As always, I really want to thank you, the board, for taking the time in your busy schedule to celebrate our stellar faculty and their tenure promotion together. So thank you for that. I also want to draw your attention to the email that I sent today addressing some errors in fact regarding the tenure presentation from 2 weeks ago. I hope that you will take the time to review it. I welcome questions or further conversation if there is anything that would be helpful to you. And I have our faculty spotlights for the evening. So Janet Campbell in political science has been hosting community forums on current events, usually about 3 per term. These are generated by asking her students, what do you want to talk about? All right. And so then those are advertised to the community as a whole as a place to come and discuss topics of current interest in political science. She's also been exploring an exciting new liaison with the University of Melbourne via their Peace Initiative Center to develop a certificate of facilitation to train people on how to encourage interested parties to discuss controversial narratives. There are a lot of long words in that sentence. As Janet explains, the first step in any peace and reconciliation process is to understand various narratives around an issue. Most recently, Janet presented at an anti-authoritarian conference for interested folks at a community center in Skamania County. Over 250 people attended on a Saturday. I'd like to spotlight Amanda Height in HPE and athletics. She's the co-chair on the HEC Transfer Council Common Course Numbering Subcommittee for General Ed. This is a committee that is working for across the state under the HEC to make all courses, as many courses as feasible in a time frame, transferable for students, right? If they move from one to another. It's a pretty significant job, and it's done on a volunteer basis. So that deserves some appreciation there. She also, in more in her normal role under HP and athletics, is the Southern Region Representative for the Northwest Athletic Conference, NWAC, Sports Medicine Advisory Council, SMAC, because everything needs an abbreviation. She's co-coordinating the medical event coverage for the upcoming NWAC softball championships at Delta Park. And then she will be coordinating the medical event coverage for the NWAC track and field championships here at our own stadium. And then my last spotlight tonight is Catherine Creech in biology was featured in the Gresham Outlook's Sandy Post's Amazing Educators issue. The title of the article is Mushroom Master Inspires Students at Mount Hood Community College. So I took a class, like a 1-hour seminar, just to define my class, with Kat on this topic. And my favorite tidbit that I learned from Kat is that there are 20,000 sexes, essentially genders, if we think in our language, of mushrooms. The job of an educator is to inspire learning. I bet you go look that up.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up is Corey Houston for the CEA report.
Good evening. I also appreciate that the mic is left on, and I would like to congratulate our faculty colleagues on tenure. I apologize. I very rarely find myself speechless and or breathless. I blame a walk that I took earlier this lovely afternoon with a friend. It's good for the heart, which reminds me of a statement that my colleague Jennifer Hare once said. Classified employees are the lungs of this institution. We bring the oxygen to the heart, but we also know that the heart is our students, and we feel keenly the fear when a change of $200 could mean not being able to afford a prescription. It's also difficult to afford a prescription when you don't have health care or the wages to pay for it. So in consideration, I want to bring up a conversation that I had earlier today with a trusted colleague, or earlier this week, and it focused around on there is no guarantee of safety. And I fundamentally disagree. I don't think you can have community without safety. What we cannot guarantee is the status quo. So with that in mind, I'm going to read off a couple of the things that our colleagues do to guarantee that safety and bring that oxygen to the heart that we all serve. We help our students achieve their individual best. We help English and Spanish-speaking women return to work and plan their careers. We help first-generation students from disadvantaged backgrounds achieve their academic success. We help veterans navigate and succeed here at Mount Hood Community College. We help displaced trade workers write their next story. We've mapped and helped map a sustainable future for our college, and we even make sure that our college is paid for the services rendered. So I'm going to close on a statement. When the winds of change blow, the reed that doesn't bend breaks. And the winds are still howling outside. But oftentimes, if you stand at the eye of the storm, there is calmness. And if you listen, you may just hear our employees breathing that oxygen in and providing safety for each other and our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Court. Next up is Marilyn Pitts for the part-time faculty report.
Hey, Andrew, I've got to say that I love Corey dearly, and sometime I need to come before him because it is hard to follow him. Okay. And that's facetious. I'm fine with the position. I see no rhyme nor reason nor value based on the position, but I've just got to add my own twist to Corey's very beautiful comments and just, you know, I'm a literal person, so it's going to be a different presentation when I make my presentation. So I also want to congratulate Christine, Melly, and Dustin on gaining tenure. Years ago when I taught at Parkrose High School, I had tenure there, and it is a process that one earns and has one's work assessed before it's given. And so I'm sure that they have earned the right to have tenure, and truly congratulations to them. I don't know if I should mention this next part, but you know me, I sometimes do. So I spent the last 2 weeks basically in Florida, the last day as I was driving to Orlando, it was 92 degrees. Hell's bells, it probably was 92% humidity too. And I had heard from the cat sitter that, oh, it's been raining all the time in Oregon. And I was like, oh, I'm so looking forward to be back in Oregon. But anyway, I was there when you all had your last work session. That's how this relates. And perhaps this item was covered. If it was, please let me know and I'll listen to the recording. But I'm still interested to hear how other community colleges are increasing their student enrollment more than we are. That still seems like a potential place where we could come up with budget monies and not have to increase the tuition as much. So maybe Andrew, you could let me know if y'all already discussed that in the last work session. If not, I would love to hear more about that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Marilyn. Next, we'll move to the executive leadership reports. And the executive leadership have included their monthly division reports in our board packet. We'd now like to offer them an opportunity to share any noteworthy updates that were not included in the written reports. And I don't know, John's not here. So John's not here for student development. So we'll move to instruction, Tina. Thank you. Jennifer? Okay. Good. Thank you. Advancement? Jennifer's?
Jennifer's not here. I'll just make a plug. She is at the National Council for Marketing and Public Relations Conference. And tomorrow night, we will find out if we were the gold, silver, or bronze winner, but we're receiving a national award. So
cool.
She's there attending that conference and hopefully bringing it.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, that concludes executive leadership reports. Thank you. And next we'll move to president's report. Dr. Scari?
So just a quick point of business. I know the board has been interested to new board members. This will be new news. Except for board members. I think I would learn. For some of the older board members, we have identified all the dates to do the visits to all the city councils and the school districts. Roxanne has those dates, and so we'll be sending that out to you. We've got 14 visits between April 2nd and June 11th. So she'll be sending those out. Please, we'll get those out this week. Please try to, by the weekend, take a look and see which ones you can join for so we can plan out where we might need to fill in with others. But glad to get those all scheduled and on the record. So my comments, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge kind of the reality of the budget process that we're navigating this year. As you likely heard, session ended. We did not receive a cut going into next year, which was good news and gave us all a sigh of relief. You might remember a few months ago, we were playing with the scenarios that we might have a 5% cut for the biennium, which would have been devastating. So I just want to thank you all for your advocacy in Salem. If you were using the voter voice or whichever the app is that OCCA sends out, anything you did, thank you. It worked. We were able to get through the session, no cuts. That said, in a time with no new additional support, our costs continue to rise, which you heard from Jennifer. And every decision we make carries some weight. And there's no easy choices. We're balancing our responsibilities to our students, to our community, to our employees, and to our long-term sustainability. And this is all within very real financial constraints. Now, this process we know takes all of us. I have to say campus has been amazing at working through this, trying to identify savings where we can. And it requires some difficult trade-offs. And unfortunately, we can't avoid a do no harm because we know our work involves people and we know any choice we make not to do something impacts a person. And so we're very mindful of that, but also trying to make sure through all of this, we're reflecting our shared commitment to stewarding this institution thoughtfully and responsibly into the future. I appreciate your engagement in this process, your willingness to ask the questions and understand, and your focus on both the immediate needs and also our long-term stability. And I do believe that together, we will work together and figure out how to ensure Mount Hood Community College remains strong into the future and centered on our students and our community. Now, part of the moving forward, because I know that sounds kind of grim, there's still a whole lot of positive that is what's going to sustain us going forward. Tonight we did our 3 new tenured faculty, which is exciting to hear the new ideas and the new things they're bringing. And if you can, I mean, you got a spotlight into 3 people. We have over 100 full-time faculty, right? So just imagine that multiplied and how we can capture that and share that. And that will be attracting people to our programs. Also, I do see some opportunity within our enrollments. And so the question around where are we in relation to other schools? If we look post-COVID, kind of an interesting phenomenon within the Portland metro area, we saw growth quicker than our peers. So we kind of led the rise and experienced higher rates, which we also kind of started tapering off a little bit before they did. We saw in the fall. We're now seeing everyone kind of following suit. I do just want to make a plug. We have outperformed PCC's number consistently post-COVID. So if you're interested in our market, we're doing better than they are. And spring term has been a positive surprise. We are currently sitting up 12% over last year, which typically spring is your lowest term. Now, there's still a week and it could level off. We don't think it'll be that high, but something has happened where we're seeing higher than expected enrollments for spring. Of course, we'll see where things land, and then we can look and see where the students are, what programs to better understand. But again, how can we capture that, learn from it, and replicate it? So we are expecting a better spring. And we hope this good news continues. And as always, we'll try to figure out ways to continue the positive momentum, because I think, as we've said, there's a lot of good going on here, and we need to make sure it keeps going. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Just a question or comment. When the timing is appropriate, would love to gather your senses for why you think the higher than expected enrollment is for the spring. When you know that information, would love to know that.
Probably 4th week of the term, we kind of get final numbers, and so we can kind of then compare and see what's different. So late April.
Great. Thank you.
All right. That brings us to the end of the meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? May I have a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. Thank you. We're adjourned. And we're at 2 hours. I just want to